Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you still haven't completed the Arwen event, there are still a couple of days left to clear that tier 6. This is the tier 6 battle, so if you do need a bit of a guide, watch here, you can follow along. I do have Arwen at gear 5 for this particular battle. Her abilities are all at level 3. I think I did bump her passive up to level 4 for this battle. There are some players that have completed this on gear 4, so it's more a matter of the RNG for the particular battle. Sometimes, you know, that quick shot can get his AoE attack off and just do crit damage right across the board and decimate the team. So it may take you a couple of attempts, but overall it's not really that difficult once you get things going your way. So just give it a couple of tries, you should be able to beat it relatively easy and get that all important 500,000 gold, which will probably get you a good maybe 3 upgrades or something like that. It didn't get me very far, that's for sure. But one thing doing this event, it had me wondering whether these 5 elves could actually be effective somewhere else in the game. So if you did only get Arwen at 3 stars and you have been able to gear her up a little bit so she is a little bit more useful, so once you get to that gear 5 gear 6 level and start leveling her up a little bit more, she is going to be viable even at a lower star level. But the team itself, will you be able to use them to get through different areas of the game? So in this video, I'm going to attempt to use them in a few different areas. I'm going to do 2 different challenge modes. I'm going to do one of the higher nodes in the light side chapters and also run them in arena just to see how they go. So you get to see all of my successes and failures throughout this testing and see just how viable these elves might be in the future. For this testing, all of my elves are at gear level 5. Abilities all at level 3. They are all at level 35 with the exception of Elrond and Arwen, who are both level 50. So that is going to be pretty similar to most players, I think, at this particular point. So you're going to get a fair indication of just how viable the elves are going to be and just what extra gear you might need to add to them just to complete some of those other areas of the game. But there you have it, guys. That's tier 6 completed in the Arwen event. What we're going to do now is we're just going to move on to our challenge mode, and we're going to start with our Dark Relics tier number 5 so we can farm some of those all important shadow crystals that we're really struggling to keep enough to gear up our characters with. So let's get into that one now. So for the purpose of testing, I just wanted to stick with the 5 elves so that we can see just how they work together and the potential that they might have down the track. Now bear in mind that there isn't a current leader within the team, so they don't really work as well together as they should. But once you bring Elrond into the mix, I think this team is really going to be very difficult to beat. And even the addition of Elledan, who I do believe should be coming within the next couple of weeks. They said that both Elledan and Elrond will drop during the month of June. So if I'm going to guess, I would say we should see Elledan's kit sometime this week, with the event probably taking place at the end of next week. And then following that, we should see Elrond's kit and then the legendary event to finish off the month in that final weekend of June. But as soon as we get more official information on any of those characters, I'll make sure that I bring that information to you guys so that you're well prepared for those events. Elledan, I'm pretty sure, will be a very similar event to this one for Arwen. So at least that's another free character that you're going to be able to get. Now when it comes to Elrond being a legendary event, you're going to need at least 5 elves at 5 stars. I don't know if you will need Elledan and Arwen as a requirement for those events, but at the very least you will need 5 elves at 5 stars to be able to unlock him. So make sure that you keep farming Lomian and Lalail, so that way you've got those elves ready for when that event does come around. And if you can get one of these other elves up to that 5-star level, even better. But coming back to this particular challenge mode, as you can see, keeping the elves alive isn't too bad at the moment, but as that damage starts to ramp up, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Once you kind of lose one character, you're probably going to start to lose a few more. You can see there, Lalail and Elrond both pretty low on health. So I think getting past that second round of this particular tier is going to be a little bit difficult. But some of these elves, especially Arwen, she does seem to be able to do quite a bit of damage, which is good for a support character. Whether she's going to be able to survive this particular battle here and get to that last round, I highly doubt it. Looks like we're just about to get finished off here by these orcs. That's going to be it for that one. So this one is a little bit of a fail. But at higher gear levels, you never know, you might be able to push that just a little bit further, the more that they can survive. But let's now move on to our treasure trove. We're going to attempt tier number 6 of the treasure trove. Now, if you do want to mix this team up a little bit and use some of those characters that you have started to develop, what you can do, if you have Halbarad, he can be a decent leader, especially if you add Strider into the team as well, because Elrond here is also a ranger, so those three will work pretty well together. And then you can also add Arwen and Naramiri to the team, just for that extra healing support. And they are quite an effective team. I think you'll find that you do get some pretty decent results out of that team, and you can use that as a light side team going forward. But it depends on how well developed you have those other characters and if you have unlocked Halbarad yet. And also just make sure that whichever combination you use, you just have a couple of characters in there that are going to help protect those elves a little bit, so those elves will then be able to keep the rest of the team alive. Now, as you can see, I've already messed up here, lost one of the team already. These dwarves are going to be a little bit tough. They're going to chip me down just a little bit too much. So moving into that second round, I'm probably going to be a little bit too damaged to be able to stand up to the next ones that we're going to face here. Because these cheeky goblins, when you defeat one of them, their replacement seems to be a little tougher than what it was the first time around, rather than being a little bit weaker. So it's really odds against you in this one, and absolutely getting decimated by the AoE attacks here. Now, one thing I will say about Naramiri, she is a pretty decent healer, and also adding that protection so that you don't get debuffed very often. She is a very effective character to have, but she is a little bit weak, so if she is in the line of fire, she is going to die pretty easily. But if you can protect her, she's going to keep the team alive a lot better than some of the other healers in the game. But as for this particular challenge, I don't think we're going to last very much longer here. You see, even Arwen's healing there, it's more of a passive type of heal, so you need to have your turn before you gain any of that health. Slowly chipping away at these goblins, but we're just not going to have enough left here, especially with that little counter attack that they've got happening there. No, I don't think we're going to get much further than that, although I did get a little bit further than what I expected to here. But even if we do manage to get rid of that Batmaster, which I don't think we will, but if we do, you can see there, Great Goblin is just going to slowly chip away at us anyways. We're not really going to be able to defeat him, I don't think. Now, yes, I do understand there could be a better strategy that you could have to go through some of these battles, but overall, at the level that these elves are at, they're just not going to be strong enough to be able to carry through and defeat that last level of this particular challenge. Although I have managed to get through the goblins here, but Arwen on her deathbed, going through to the last wave into a room full of orcs and a troll. She is not going to last very long at all. That one's all over. Let's move on to our chapters, and I'm going to be attempting to do light side 5-2 normal. So let's see how far we can get through this particular battle here. So one thing that I have picked up in the testing so far is that these elves aren't actually too bad as far as synergy goes. Even without a leader, they do have the tendency to be able to keep the team alive quite well. There are some decent damage dealers in there, so I have no doubt whatsoever once we add these other two elves to the team under the Elrond lead, that it's going to be an incredibly difficult team to beat. Because there are two other factors that we haven't really touched on yet. The first one is some of the counterattacks, especially if you have a taunter or a provoker in the team. Elrond here is going to have the chance to counterattack every time one of those characters gets hit. So if Elledan does have a similar kit to the PvE Elledan that we've seen in some of the challenge modes and some of the other tiers, that's going to provide Elrond here the perfect character to work with in order for him to have plenty of those counterattacks come off. So I am fairly confident that's what we're going to be able to see from him. And another feature that these elves have is that nimble feature where they're able to dodge attacks completely. So when you're looking at the current arena meta with someone like Gaza, if you're going to be able to avoid some of his AoE attacks and counter him as well, you're really going to take him out of the fight pretty quickly, and he's not going to be as dominant in the arena as what he currently is. So what I really think is going to happen is once these elves are all in the game, people start gearing them up, getting those abilities up to those higher levels, the elves will very quickly dominate in the arena, and some of those mixed teams that we've seen are really going to become obsolete pretty quickly. One thing that I would really like to hear from you guys in the comments below is what teams you think we might be able to put together with the current elf combinations that might work pretty well, and also some of the combinations we might be able to build to counter them once all of the elves are in the game. One thing that they have made this game very difficult to do is build multiple teams so that we can test different things out. But if there's something that you guys do want to see, and I am able to start putting some other teams together to be able to do videos in the future, I'm happy to try and do that for you, just so that especially some of the free-to-play players out there can start putting together some teams that are going to be a little bit more successful moving forward, and also try and help you guys keep your rank in the arena to get those crystal rewards every day. Also, out of curiosity, I'm just wondering what you guys think will be the meta after the elves. Do you think it might be the dwarves? Do you think they might bring in the Nazgul? If you remember one of my videos from back in the beta when I was talking about the arena meta back then, I did actually mention the 3 Nazgul that were in the game at the time but not farmable. The abilities that they had were so good, and I did label them the elf killers based on the abilities that they had. I'm not sure when the Nazgul will appear in the game, if they have plans to do it sooner or later. We know at some stage we will get them, but just how good will they be? I think they're actually going to be essential to have in your teams once they do become farmable. But back to our chapter here, it looks like these elves are going to be just strong enough here to get this job done. We're only going to get maybe 1 or 2 stars out of it. We may get the 2 depending on how we go with Gollum there. He can get pretty savage at times, but it does look like Naramiri and Arwen are doing their job, keeping this team alive long enough to be able to let the damage dealers do what they do best. So we should be able to take out that last little goblin, and then we'll be able to take down Gollum for the victory. So I would say that it is a success as far as the chapter modes are concerned. If you want to build up these elves, there's nothing wrong with farming them and gearing them up, because if they can go into chapter 5-2 here, then they're going to be pretty effective. Now we're going to move on to our arena battle, but while we're getting this one underway, I will let you know that I did manage to beat 4-9 hard for the light side with the elves as well, so those harder chapters are still very possible with these elves. Now this is a fairly common arena type squad that you're going to be facing on a daily basis. They did put a pretty well geared up Arwen into this team, so I thought why not just give it a go. But as you can see, these elves are getting absolutely decimated at the moment. I don't think it's going to get very far at all, but you did see one of those dodge and counter attacks right there from Lomian. We have Gaza coming in to clean everybody up, but I think it's pretty conclusive that this team is not ready for the arena as it is. But once Elrond hits the game, look out guys, because it will be different. But that's it for this one guys. Don't forget, like and sub. You know the deal. We got plenty more Heroes of Middle-earth coming your way. Don't miss out, and we'll catch you in the next one.